Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Naveen Kumar. I am the managing partner for Naveen and Naveen, a strategy consulting firm. Spent over 35 years in working internationally for a variety of firms, from manufacturing firms to process firms to services and ITES. I have set up three greenfield ventures in ITES. And I'm here today to share with you some of my experiences and some of my thoughts around the war for talent. So, this is a pretty often used term, a phrase, war for talent in talent acquisition. And what we are going to talk about is this war for talent or lack of talent availability, is it for real or is it only a reflection of our own inefficiencies when we refer to this term? And I'm going to raise some issues and questions around this. Uh, so if you look at, for example, uh, when was this term started? This phrase was created by a McKinsey report in the early 80s, which says that war for talent is a strategic business challenge and also a critical driver for corporate performance. The consultants named here on this slide, they surveyed a variety of firms across several countries, and they tried to find out what is it that makes some of the organizations more successful than others. Uh, and is it necessarily about how do you attract and develop and retain talented people, or is it something else that creates this difference? Uh, And it was found that creating an employee value proposition is is a very different ball game. So it is not a process oriented, wherein we talk about, the employee engagement processes, a compensation process, or performance management processes, etc., and creating an experience around mentoring and coaching, which has become a very, very fashionable term these days in the organizations. But it is something very, very different. And I'll come to that in a couple of minutes. And so central to this study points out, is a talent mindset. And we'll talk about what this talent mindset is about. Talent mindset is about a deep conviction that the whole organization shares as to how do we identify talent? How do we define talent? What is that we do differently to attract and retain the talent that we have in organization? And this must be part of our real values in the organization, which must be reflected in terms of the real operational and behavioral parameters of the organization. Very often, ladies and gentlemen, you may have seen that every single organization today talks about talent as a critical resource. Human resource is a critical input in their organizational success. But how often have you experienced that organizations typically value their talent? What is extraordinarily different that they do to attract talent, to retain talent? And I'm not talking about negotiating the salary when somebody puts in paper, and that's a very different ball game altogether. So let's look at some of the issues related to talent mindset. What is a talent mindset? And I'll talk in a few minutes now about Richard Fairbank, who is the CEO of Capital One Bank in US, which became one of the Fortune 500 companies, and it has retained its position over several years. And what is their experience? So what is a talent mindset? The researchers from McKinsey said that once a manager believes that talent is her responsibility, and this is a very, very important thing to see. And I would request all of you to please reflect on your own experience. Hiring a good talent, is it a responsibility of the line managers, Or is it seen as a key responsibility of the HR department or talent acquisition team? Where does it reflect as one of the KRAs and KPIs for senior managers? And unfortunately, the experience is that most often it falls in the lap of the HR department. For example, today itself, I was with a client system and holding a training program for them on interviewing skills, improving the efficiency of hiring process. And this is an IT product company. And we raised this issue and we saw it, that very often it is the HR who has the key responsibility of recruitment. HR can only play a supportive role to organize all these processes, get the candidates to your door. But what kind of candidates come to your door? What quality of candidates get through your door must be a key responsibility of the line hiring managers. And if that is missing, you will not be able to spot and hire the right kind of talent. And so it's about a deep-seated belief, and it's about a deep-seated value system in an organization that drives all activities that converge at identifying or defining, actually, to defining, then identifying, and then retaining the right kind of talent. And do we have it in our organizational system? And that's a critical parameter which decides the quality of people that the quality of talent which you'll be able to attract, the quality of talent that you'll be able to hire, and the quality of talent that you'll be able to retain. And no wonder today, if you look around yourself, including your own firms, depending on what is the quality of talent it hires and retains, you could relate to this experience that despite whatever you're trying to do in the name of performance management system, in terms of compensation benchmarking, in terms of employee engagement activities, in terms of learning and development initiative, are you able to attract and retain right kind of people, right kind of talent? And that's a key challenge. And that's the question I'm trying to build here. And therefore, talent mindset, it's a cultural issue. It's a behavioral process issue within the organization that one needs to look at. So what is that the leader with a talent mindset does? How often have you seen senior managers getting involved in the hiring process? And when I say hiring process, is not only the time that they invest in conducting an interview, but look at that as well. But the whole process, end to end, defining what kind of people must come on, making sure that their team members in their vertical understand how to identify the right kind of people that they need. Investing time, in their review meetings with their team members to understand as to what kind of talent is required and why and how are they going to do to hire them and retain them. And this whole process is what our talent mindset is all about. So Richard Fairbank is the CEO of Capital One, who says that talent is most talked about and least delivered thing in business. So, you open any website of any firm randomly, irrespective of their size, their geographic location, their success. You'll find most of them will say that people are their most valuable asset, which does not necessarily mean that it is true. And that's where my question in the title of the webinar, when I say that, is it real or is it a reflection of our ineptitude? So when we say that we don't have talent available in this country, and I'm talking specifically about India, are we really talking that we don't have the right kind of talent? Or are we just trying to cover up some of the inefficiencies in our process, in our own attitude, in the behavior that we exhibit at work, and we're trying to cover it up using an alibi that talent is not available. If talent is not available, then how come, and allow me to take some names, for example, how come companies like Google and Amazon and Qualcomm and other such companies which are deep technology oriented product companies, how are they able to find their people here in the same market when some of us in the other companies are not able to find the right talent? So is it availability of the talent, or is it that we are doing something differently, or they are doing something differently that we are not doing, which is creating that sense of a lack of the talent availability in the market? And so that's what we're talking about, really. And this is something which requires critical attention from all the people in the recruiting fraternity, the talent acquisition fraternity, the HR fraternity, and even business heads and senior people management in the firms, irrespective of what business we're talking about. So as a thumb rule, try and go out and talk to any business head that you may know, who may be part of your network on social media, including LinkedIn, and ask them what are some of top 3 business drivers or top 3 business goals that you carry. Every single business head will say, quality of people in my team is one of my critical business drivers. And I'll come to some of the questions that you may ask. You will find, how much knowledge do you have for this talent gap? You will find that what do you do? You will find that mostly we tend to ascribe this to someone else, some other factions. For example, my HR is not doing right, the education institutions are not doing right, the quality of talent available is not right, our education system is not right, blah, 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 blah. But they will seldom talk about what is that you are not doing appropriately or rightly to address the situation. And most of us don't tend to look at our own inefficiencies in terms of defining, identifying, and retaining, hiring and then retaining the right talent. And therefore, my key question, again, coming back, is it real or is it a reflection of our ineptitude? So you'll find that most leaders is scampering for cover, I've said. So, most people, if you ask them that, does your organization or your vertical has the right talent mindset? And I'll come to that in a minute, with few questions that you could actually use to ascertain within your own business if your organization or your vertical has the right talent mindset or not. And if you ask any one of your business heads about these questions, you'll find that they'll be running for cover. And that tells you a lot about, the kind of talent mindset we have. So what are some of these key questions? So first question, are you recruiting for vacant positions or hunting for talent all of the time? And if you look around yourself and look at any company today, irrespective of the business vertical, look at any company that you consider or your industry considers to be a top of the line excellent firm. Do they necessarily hire only when a position falls vacant, or they keep looking for good talent? And what is that your business does? Number 2, reflect on what are your talent pools. So what are the pools available for you to hire from? And you will find, unfortunately, most often that it is not a structured and designed intervention. This is not a structured answer. Most people in the talent acquisition team, depending on their level of comfort, their size of network, look at, or their past experience, look at a particular kind of pool. So if you talk as an organization, have we identified where to hire from? Where will I get the right kind of talent pool? The answer is no. Do you have an explicit and structured process for targeting passive candidates? The answer again is no. And that is where, if you reflect, where your social media hiring is failing. Social media hiring has become very fashionable today. But does it necessarily give you the right kind of results? You look at the number of people you have hired from social media and look at the quality of people you have hired. Even in social media, most people that you're able to hire are those people who are also active on some job portals. Because they are the ones who are saying on their social media profile that I'm actively looking for a job change. But they are not necessarily the right people that you need to hire. They're available, yes, but are they the right talent for you? That's the question you need to ask. And therefore, most organizations do not even have a right social media strategy. A good, effective social media strategy, and sometimes, in the coming weeks, we will pick up social media hiring strategy as a separate topic. Most social media hiring is suboptimal because we do not know how to address, how to reach, and how to attract passive candidates who may be the right talent for you. The next question, and these are some questions, ladies and gentlemen, that I am enlisting here that you should ask your own business in your own context. Raise some of these questions with your own business heads. Do you specify firm compensation ranges, or do you break your compensation rules to get top performers? So very often, and I'm sure you have experienced this, you have a compensation range for every band or every grade, and typically you would tend to stick to that. So if somebody, you're looking for a particular grade or particular role fits into a particular compensation range, if you get a good candidate but is already drawing much above this compensation range, you will tend to discard him. And I'm not making any value judgment here, but you need to consider. So then, are you looking at a compensation fit or talent fit? You must ask yourself this question. I recently met a candidate. He was one of my students at Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. A guy with exceptional abilities, competence, worked with very large firms like IBM as well. But he happened to join a startup where he picked up a lower salary and part of his compensation as a stake in this firm. Unfortunately, this firm didn't work, so it folded up. He came back into a job market. Now the companies that are interviewing him, they say, what is your last compensation? And they are able to pitch, or they're willing to pitch him only based on his last compensation and not the previous compensation that he actually had. And this is such a bright guy, but he's in a fix. And he approached me as to, sir, what do I do? And we spoke about some strategies as to how should he address this. But look at yourself. Look at your own firm. If you were faced with this kind of a scenario, how will your firm expect you to respond to? How will your firm respond to such situations where somebody, given his competence, belongs somewhere, but because of certain circumstances, his last compensation was much lower? Are you willing to give him a 200% raise to fit him in the right place where he belongs? Or will you be forced to either ask him to come at a much, much lower compensation, related to his last compensation, or are you willing to drop him? And these are some of the questions that create, that give you an indication of the talent mindset. So while the organization website and your brochure might say we value people, talent and human resource, does it really do this? And this is what we talk about when we say talent mindset. Are you hiring only as needed, or are you developing a comprehensive recruitment strategy for each type of talent you need? And so, if you ask your team, either your talent acquisition team members or your business verticals, different managers, do they all understand what is the definition of talent in your firm? And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, my experience is that you will find people writing different definitions, people trying to define the talent very, very differently. And no wonder that you do not hire the right talent for your organization, and you are also not able to find a right fitment for this guy, because somebody who interviewed may not necessarily be the person to keep this guy in his own team. Do you have a talent standard? Is talent standards? How do you define talent? What are the current talent standards? Is this part of the review of your senior management team? So when senior management meets once a month or once in a quarter or whatever periodicity, is this part of their agenda? Any organization which has a talent mindset has specifically this as a fixed agenda of senior management review meeting as to what is the standard of talent that we have in the current company and how do we take it to the next level. How many senior people, this is the next question, how many times, how often, for what position, and how much time does your senior management invest in hiring and selection interviews? So how often do they do it? For what roles do they do it? Maybe, at best, if they're recruiting for very senior people, number 2, number 3 in the organization, they'll get involved. But do they get involved at a junior position? The answer may be no, unfortunately. Now, if the senior people are not involved in defining, auditing periodically, and interviewing themselves, whether the right candidate is coming through the door or not, what is the guarantee that the rest of the people are hiring the right quality of people, right quality of talent? And so these are some of the questions that you may ask yourself. Does your firm offer significant opportunities for growth to right talent? So what if you have hired a right talent? Are you making him part of the crowd, or are you treating him differently? Let's say you hired an average person, but over a period of time, you find that somebody has grown much faster and much better than others. Do you treat him as part of the crowd, or do you treat him differently? Unfortunately, you'll find, and I'm using two terms very, very consciously, people tend to use their team members equally, and which is the most unfortunate thing. Treating unequal people equally is the most unequal thing in this world. Let me repeat this. Treating unequal people equally is the most unequal thing in this world. See, now, should you treat people equally? The answer is never, ever. You must differentiate. But you must treat people equitably. What does that mean? That brighter talent, people who contribute more, who learn faster, must be treated better than someone who is average. And so equitable treatment is a much better paradigm to work on than treating equally. And most organizations don't understand this, and many organizations don't even do it. So does your organization offer significantly, does it significantly differentiate rewards for high potential talents? And the answer again, will give you whether your organization has a talent mindset or not. If you don't have it, you'll not be able to attract. Even if you're able to attract and hire, you'll not be able to retain high quality talent. And high quality talent, ladies and gentlemen, does not necessarily mean the institution from where he passed out, the brand of the institution where he passed out his last qualification, or the brand of firm that he last worked. That does not define in any way the quality of talent that you may have. So let me see, it shows me something here. All right, so I don't know, it's flashing something here. Okay, so I'll still go ahead. So it's interesting, today morning I was sharing with Rahul, and Rahul, you remember I shared with you, I was Ubering, and the Uber had a music going on, which in Hindi I will say first, and then possibly try and translate it, transliterate it in English for those who've logged in from outside India. It said, "Har taraf har jagah beshumar aadmi, fir bhi tanhaiyon ka shikar aadmi." And that sums up in a way the kind of title that I picked up. Is it a real war for talent, or is it only a reflection on our ineptitude? So for those of you, who've signed in from abroad and who don't understand Hindi, this is a poetry in Urdu, which says that we are living in midst of whole lot of people, crowd everywhere. Wherever you turn, you see a crowd of people, a sea of people. But why is it that we sense or we feel loneliness while we are standing in the crowd of people? And that, ladies and gentlemen, in some ways sums up the kind of environment we are looking in, and that in some ways sums up the kind of question that I wanted to raise through this webinar. Is it for real, this war of talent, or is it only a reflection of the kind of ineptitude, inefficiencies we have in our own system, the kind of things we're not doing? Is that reflected in the war of talent? And so I'm going to pick up the next part of it, so in the next webinar series that, Rahul is going to announce, where I'll talk about some of the answers. But in the meanwhile, I'll encourage all of you to, think about this. I shall invite you to the next edition of this webinar series to find answers to some of these questions. In the meantime, I encourage you how not to feel alone in a sea of people, what it says, tanhaiyon ka shikar aadmi. So what is that we need to do differently to really gain an upper hand in this war for talent scenario? What is that will help us get the right kind of people? Because if there are some firms like Google and Amazon, in Texas Instruments or Qualcomm in this country, who are able to pick up the high quality of talent to deliver the kind of product that they do, why is it that some of us are not able to spot that talent in our own surrounding? And so I want to leave all of you, ladies and gentlemen, with this question, and we'll connect in the next part of this webinar series, where I'll try and respond with your experiences and my experiences as what could be some of the workable solution to this. I'll stop here, and I would appreciate, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point in time. Over to you, ladies and gentlemen. And Rahul, I'll appreciate, I'm not sure if I can see the questions here, but if anybody has a question, if you could help me know that question, I'll be very, very glad to respond it. So there is a banner here which says a number, but I don't know, So there is a chat here. All right.
I'm Rahul here. We've kept it. We've kept it audio only from your side, from the organizer, because this way people can ask you questions on the email and offline.
Okay.
So that's the better way, because otherwise a lot of people start to ask questions and there was a lot of noise in the last meeting.
Okay.
So that's why we decided this time to keep it one-sided.
All right. So that's it from my side, Rahul. We'll wait. I'll wait for the questions, and I'll try and respond to each one of you, ladies and gentlemen. And look forward to meet you again in the next part of this webinar series. Meet you with some of the answers to these questions I raised in this webinar.
Perfect. Thanks very much, sir. And look forward to the next session. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And have a good day and good night, as your time may be. Thank you.